All right, Comey indicted. It just happened. Let's check it out. All right, some breaking news on this Thursday night. Welcome to Rob Schmitt tonight, and we have just gotten the indictment. It has just come down for former FBI Director James Comey. 2 counts, perjury and obstruction of false statements. Still trying to figure out exactly what they're doing with that. This has just been handed down, we believe, in the last 10 minutes or so. So the big talker today is people knew this was coming. We anticipated this coming. Everybody's talking about retribution and whether or not that's what this is. It kind of feels like that, right? But let's remember how we got here. When the ridiculous dossier launched Washington into chaos mode investigating Russia collusion, Comey was part of the cadre of officials that played up the investigation while knowing that it was nonsense. That cadre crippled the first 2 years of Trump's first presidency. It was a Democrat scheme to protect the swamp from the mandate sent by the American people, and James Comey, although he was a Republican, was part of that larger swamp. Party didn't matter anymore. Trump was a threat to everything, right? He wasn't supposed to be in power. The indictment that has come, because the statute of limitations is just 5 days away, does feel like retribution, does feel like they saw a man and they looked for a crime, and that's likely happening. That's exactly what they did to Donald Trump. Did anyone think this wasn't going to happen the other way? And with Washington howling that this is retribution, here was the president today.
Well, I can't tell you what's going to happen because I don't know. You have very professional people headed up by the Attorney General and Todd Blanche. They're going to make a determination. I'm not making that determination. I think I'd be allowed to get involved if I want, but I don't really choose to do so. I can only say that Comey's a bad person. He's a sick person. I think he's a sick guy, actually. He did terrible things at the FBI. And but I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen.
So that's his position, right? But has the DOJ started looking for crimes to charge against the people who have attacked that man so unjustly over the last several years as they did? Probably. But again, are we really surprised after what they did? Did anybody think that Donald Trump, a shrewd New York developer, a killer, was so angelic that he wouldn't even get even after being attacked so relentlessly? They tried to imprison and bankrupt him as he ran for president. They started this. They destroyed the system, and this is what they get. If you don't do this, they'll never stop doing what they did, right? If you don't swing it back the other way, they never learn a lesson. Comey's crime, lying to Congress, which it's pretty clear that he did. So let's not get too crazy with the retribution stuff. If there's a crime there, you got to charge it, right? Back in 2017, he admits under oath that he gave his personal memos from meetings with the president to a friend to leak to the media. Here's the moment.
The president tweeted on Friday, after I got fired, that I better hope there's not tapes. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night, because it didn't dawn on me originally, that there might be corroboration for our conversation. There might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel. And so I asked a close friend of mine to do it.
Asked a close friend of mine to do it. Now, these memos contain negative information about Trump. Comey's claim that Trump asked him to let Michael Flynn off the hook for the great crime of speaking to the Russians during the transition, which is something every single administration does. They talk to other foreign dignitaries. They talk to the ambassadors. They talk to whoever they need to talk to. They get things straight in the incoming administration. This is what they do. Just ask John Kerry. They only went after it, though, when it was Trump's guy, when it was Flynn. Comey says he asked him to let Flynn off the hook. The problem for Comey is, in 2020, he flips his story completely upside down while under oath and claimed he never leaked or authorized anyone else to leak anything. Oops. It's a very, very cut and dry case because you've got both moments on tape in front of Congress, under oath. So that's a crime, right? And remember, we're just playing by their rules. Take a listen.
No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much money you think you may have, no one is above the law.
We today uphold our solemn responsibility to ensure that everyone stands equal before the law.
The fact is, no one is above the law.
We must be clear. No one, not even the president, is above the law.
No person is above the law in this country. I can't say it any more clearly than that.
And if nobody is above the law, that means, I guess, James Comey isn't either. Mike Davis is founder and president of the Article 3 Project. Former Congressman Brad Wenstrup was a member of the House Intelligence Committee and knows a lot about all this. And good to have you both on. Mike, they're all screaming retribution, but it sounds like there's a crime here.
Yeah, I would say to James Comey, lawyer up, buddy, because as they say on the Democrat side, nobody is above the law. And there's pretty good evidence that he provided false statements to Congress, and there's pretty good evidence that he obstructed a congressional investigation when he helped make up the Russian collusion hoax, the biggest scandal in American history, where they tried to take out a presidential candidate, Trump, to try to help another presidential candidate, Hillary, and hide her corruption. And then they continued this conspiracy to try to hobble his presidency and to try to hobble his post-presidency. Justice is definitely coming.
Congressman, the obstruction, can you go into what you believe the obstruction charge is? The perjury is pretty simple. We just played the soundbite. What is the obstruction? What are they getting at here?
Well, I think, the obstruction comes in is trying to put these things aside. And we saw this over and over again. Sitting on the Intelligence Committee, there's so many times we would ask for information and we would be obstructed. Look, they're talking about retribution. They're saying it's retribution. There's a difference between retribution and truth and justice. And that's been the American way until the last several years. But, you have an indictment that's a charge of a serious crime, and you go forward from there. But you have John Ratcliffe talking about conspiracy. John Ratcliffe, Devin Nunes, we were all on the Intelligence Committee doing these investigations and finding out just the types of things that they were doing. And you talk about leaks. There was a time when James Comey went to Donald Trump to tell him about the dossier as though it was true, and it was uncorroborated. And he tells Donald Trump about it, and then 4 days later, it's leaked to CNN. First of all, leaks are not legal, right? And they shouldn't be happening anyway, but it was happening, and it was happening all the time. Adam Schiff, all of these people, you know all the names. You know who they are.
Mike, I mean, the president had 91 felony charges as well as civil. I mean, they went after him for hundreds of millions of dollars for doing things that every developer does. They charged him for nonsense. What they did to him in Georgia, just for setting up the electors, which they would have needed had they won the appeal. And they had made a crime out of everything they could possibly think of. And now they are screaming. They're screaming that this is another threat to democracy. Look at the list of what they put him through. And now they're screaming that this is a threat to democracy when James Comey gets it. I don't think there's any question that these people said, you know what? If there's any dirt anywhere from these people, we're going to get them on it. I just don't think it's wrong. I think it happened. I think they're right, but I don't think it's wrong.
Well, guess what? I would say to these Democrats who are screaming, they're going to be screaming a lot more when these criminal investigations and criminal indictments continue. I can't wait for the criminal indictment for conspiracy against rights under 18 USC Section 241 that I've been talking about on your show for over 3 years since the Mar-a-Lago raid, when you're going after Obama, Biden, Hillary, Clapper, Brennan, Comey, Weissman, Jack Smith, Jay Bratt, so many of these Democrat operatives who ran this unprecedented Republican-ending lawfare against President Trump, his top aides, and his supporters. We are just getting started today with this indictment. It's going to get much worse for the Democrats.
Yeah, and Congressman, I got about 30 seconds left, but it looks like John Bolton is in some pretty serious trouble, too. Classified documents, some pretty serious information was found at his home. What are your thoughts there?
You're talking to me?
Yeah, Congressman, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, again, this is a problem, but it's a problem with the process, because as people leave the White House, et cetera, it's a whole different situation than it is when you're down in the skiff with the Intelligence Committee. Staff doesn't let you walk out with anything. You are checked. Everything is numbered. But at the White House, apparently, there's really nothing there. And so they come in later and say, where are these things? Why didn't you check everything on the way out? That's a process problem.
Yeah. Wow. This is going to get interesting. Mike Davis and former Congressman Brad Wenstrup, good to see you both. Thanks so much. We've got Roger Stone with us now, a former Trump campaign advisor, somebody that knows very well what they did with Russiagate, somebody that was put through the hell of Russiagate personally. Want to get your reaction. The indictments just came down about 20 minutes ago.
Wow, Rob, this is karma. It turns out that James Comey has been charged with the exact same charges that they hit me with. The difference was that no misstatement I made to Congress was material, and I wasn't hiding, like he was, the greatest single abuse of power in Americans' governmental or political history, the Russian collusion hoax. And he lied not once, not twice, but multiple times, both to cover up the crimes of Hillary Clinton and to try to remove Donald Trump in a vast, seditious conspiracy. So I believe his problems are just beginning. This indictment had to be brought now and in this jurisdiction because the statute of limitations was running out. But there is no statute of limitations for seditious conspiracy or for treason. And I believe that he, Brennan, Clapper, Rice, Weissman, Rosenstein, Mueller, McCabe, several others can justifiably be charged with that crime.
As far as the criticism that this is a weaponization and that this is a retribution, I feel it is. But again, as I just said, I don't think they're wrong to do that. I think this is just desserts. This is what you get. They screwed with a heavy hitter like Donald Trump. This is what happens.
If it wasn't for double standards, the left would have no standards at all.
Exactly.
The only disappointment that I have is that they announced this publicly instead of having 29 heavily armed FBI agents storm James Comey's home at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning and roust he and his wife out of bed.
Like
that
you.
would have been a little more fitting, if you ask me.
It is something else. I mean, do you think is there more? Is this the beginning of more to come? Are we gonna see more shoes fall here?
I think we have to be very cautious. The Eastern District of Virginia is an extremely liberal jurisdiction. You're likely to get a liberal Democrat judge. You're likely to get a liberal Democrat dominated jury. The real problems for Comey, Clapper, Brennan, Rice, Biden, Weissman, Rosenstein, and others is the continuing conspiracy that begins in 2017 but continues all the way to 2024, manifesting itself in the raid on Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
That means that these crimes can be charged in the Southern District of Florida, where I think you get an honest judge and an honest jury.
Guys, if we have the Chris Murphy soundbite, the Senator Murphy soundbite from this morning on MSNBC, now obviously this was before the indictments came down, but listen to how rich this is.
I think we have to understand what the underlying point is here. Yes, Donald Trump probably wants his enemies in jail, but what he also wants is to harass his enemies to the point where a lot of people decide to just stand down. The point here, sure, is to get a few of his political adversaries in jail, but the real point is a tried and true tactic of despots all over the country, all over the world, which is to just harass and intimidate their political opposition so that people decide to stay indoors, protesters don't show up, candidates don't run. That's how democracies die.
He's very succinct with that analysis, probably because he knows exactly how it works, right?
Yeah, this is laughable. Ask General Flynn, ask Paul Manafort, ask any member of the Trump family, ask Donald Trump himself. They tried to bankrupt him. They tried to keep him off the ballot in all 50 states. They tried to throw him in jail on all kinds of trumped-up charges. So this is Alinskyism. They are always guilty of exactly what they accuse us of. It is their favorite tactic.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Roger Stone, hey, thanks for coming on. Good to see you.
Great to see you. God bless you.
All right. As left-wing violence rages, a shocking poll finds Americans are very worried about this country politically. White House's counterterrorism advisor Sebastian Gorka next. All right, so political violence coming from the left has now become a major issue in this country. Take a look at this poll. This is Quinnipiac. 79% of Americans think the U.S. is in the midst of a political crisis. That's how dangerous it's gotten. That's how ridiculous the narrative has gotten. That's how dangerous the country feels right now politically. The most recent far left-driven act of violence at that Dallas ICE facility yesterday, 29-year-old Joshua John opening fire from that rooftop right there, ended up shooting 3 migrants. This leftist shot 3 migrants in a completely botched last act of idiocy before he blew his brains out. And new details have emerged on the motives behind his attack. Take a listen.
He called the ICE employees people showing up to collect a dirty paycheck. He wrote that he intended to maximize lethality against ICE personnel and to maximize property damage at the facility.
He ended up shooting, as I said, 3 migrants, killing 1, putting 2 others in critical condition. Didn't hit anybody that actually works for ICE. John was also seen early in the morning with a large ladder, which he used to climb to the top of the building he shot from. He waited there for hours before opening fire. He had all that time to plan it, and yet he did so poorly at what he was trying to do. The FBI Director Kash Patel revealing authorities found that John downloaded a document containing a list of DHS facilities. He had multiple searches online of ballistics and also the Charlie Kirk shot video he had looked at on Monday and Tuesday before he did this. In August, he used apps that tracked the presence of ICE agents and had one of them had handwritten notes recovered that were recovered from him read, "Hopefully this will get ICE agents real terror to think, is there a sniper with rounds on that roof?" He also frequented those strange gaming sites and chat rooms similar to those of Charlie Kirk's assassin, like 4chan and Steam. Trump today reacting. Take a listen.
Radical left rhetoric. The radical left is causing the problem. We're looking at the funders of a lot of these groups. These are anarchists and agitators, professional anarchists and agitators, and they get hired by wealthy people, some of whom I know. Well, Soros is a name certainly that I keep hearing. I don't know, but Soros is a name that I hear. I hear a lot of different names. I hear names of some pretty rich people that are radical left people. Maybe I hear about a guy named Reid Hoffman.
Sebastian Gorka handles counterterrorism for the White House and joins us now. And, sir, it's good to have you back on. That number from Quinnipiac, I mean, this has got a lot of people very nervous now. There's a lot of bullets flying, and they're all coming from one direction.
You're absolutely right, Rob. And this time it's getting a little bit personal for me. I was in the office of a very senior colleague in the administration just this morning, and she informed me that she has now had to have been given a personal security detail because of the threats on her life and her family's life. This is an individual who's never harmed anyone. This is a woman who should be allowed to do her job for a man elected by almost 80 million Americans. And now she has to ride with a personal security detail every single day. And here's the rub of the issue, Rob. It's not about, you know, the fake crocodile tears of oxygen thieves like Kimmel on his show. The real problem is this. Since Charlie was murdered, a friend of mine assassinated, nothing's changed on their side. No. Not one leader, not one left-wing thought leader, member of Congress, senator, nobody has said, we distance ourselves from the violent rhetoric. We jettison the voices such as Maxine Waters or Joe Biden, who talked about using violence against your political opponents. We totally excoriate them and we remove them from our political environment. They haven't done anything, and Charlie's dead, and Erica's a widow, and those children will grow up without a father. The left refuses to rid themselves of the justification for violence. And as such, President Trump is taking measures to protect us from the violent rhetoric that becomes snipers and bullets.
And obviously the left is aware of the liability that this is politically, and the media is aware of this monster that they've created and this army of psychos that are just arming themselves now to take out these fascists and these Nazis that they've been called for the last several years. So they're all playing dumb and acting like they don't see that it's one-sided, and it's amazing to see them try and push away the liability of this thing away from their politics. I want to get to one more thing before I let you go, just because I read this story and I couldn't believe it, and it's a hat tip to our federal authorities in Washington. This was a joint U.S.-Mexican operation last month where they tracked down a criminal cartel leader accused of some of the most gruesome things I've ever heard in an infant trafficking ring in northern Mexico. Martha Alicia Mendez Aguilar, known as La Diabla, the devil, the Jalisco New Generation cartel. They were luring pregnant women in Mexico into remote areas. They would tie them down, perform C-sections, take the babies out of them, sell the babies for $14,000 into illicit trafficking markets. God only knows what happens to these babies. They harvest the organs from the mother, and then they kill the mother. This is what this woman did. She's been captured. I can't think of a worse enough punishment for that. I don't even know what I would do if I had my hands on her, but what an unbelievable catch for our government in coordination with the Mexican government.
I thank you, Rob, for mentioning this. This is when you realize the severity of what open borders meant under the Biden-Harris regime. 300 million children led into this country for exploitation purposes. That horrific story. I just want to recognize our federal law enforcement, our intelligence community analysts, and the authorities of Mexico, starting with the president and the Minister for Public Safety, Mr. Harfuch. Together, we will rid our hemisphere of these bloodthirsty, evil individuals who are threatening the peoples of both our countries.
Yeah, well said. Sebastian Gorka from the White House. Sir, thank you. We appreciate it.
God bless. Thank you, Rob.
Big update here on the New Jersey governor's race, a race we're following here very closely. We talked to Jack Ciattarelli yesterday. You saw that interview. As New Jersey, blue state, on the cusp of very possibly turning red here in about 5-6 weeks. Newly released Emerson poll out today shows Ciattarelli is dead tied, a dead heat, with Democrat nominee Mikey Sherrill in voter support, 43 to 43, 11% undecided. The news comes the same day as the New Jersey Globe dropped a bombshell article on Mikey Sherrill, the Democrat running, saying she was barred from walking with her class at the U.S. Naval Academy in 1994 as punishment connected to a massive cheating scandal implicating more than 130 midshipmen in her class. This is somebody who has centered her entire campaign around her military service as a U.S. Naval Academy graduate, but failed to walk after this scandal for not reporting. We understand she refused to report the classmates that were involved, so they didn't let her walk. Sherrill's response: I didn't turn in some of my classmates, so I didn't walk, but graduated and was commissioned as an officer in the U.S. Navy, serving for nearly 10 years with the highest level of distinction and honor. So it's another black guy, though, for a congresswoman trying to be the governor of New Jersey, who's also fighting allegations of corruption after making an absolute fortune, millions of dollars, while she was in Congress. All right, we're following that race because New Jersey is an important state. They got Pennsylvania red. New Jersey's very similar, and this is another blue state. All right, Trump slams the Hamas pep rally at the UN. We've got that next with Ambassador Mike Huckabee.
We want to get Gaza over with. I had a great meeting with the leaders of that area, of that region. Generally speaking, the Middle East. We had a great meeting the other day at UNGA, as you know, and I think we're close to getting some kind of a deal done. I'm going to have to tell Israel, let's go. We want to get the hostages back. Everybody wants to see that war over with, by the way.
All right, so the president continues to attempt the impossible here, and that's dragging Hamas to the table for a real negotiation and, of course, getting the release of every last one of the hostages and the bodies of those that have been killed. Meanwhile, the UN has once again become a pep rally for the terror group. We have Carney, Starmer, and Macron now recognizing a Palestinian state, which is a completely meaningless declaration that does nothing except isolate Israel further. Trump slamming that move.
Hamas has repeatedly rejected reasonable offers to make peace. We can't forget October 7th, can we? Now, as if to encourage continued conflict, some of this body is seeking to unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state. The rewards would be too great for Hamas terrorists for their atrocities. This would be a reward for these horrible atrocities. But instead of giving in to Hamas's ransom demands, those who want peace should be united with one message: release the hostages now.
You see Danny Danone there, the UN ambassador from Israel, watching the speech of the president and reminding people of the thing that nobody at the UN wants to talk about. And later that day, President Trump told reporters that Macron is rewarding Hamas, with Macron sitting right next to him.
It honors Hamas, and you can't do that because of October 7th. You just can't do that. But we want our hostages back. You can't honor them by doing anything like you suggest. All you can do is say, we want our hostages back. October 7th was one of the most savage days in the history of the world. There's never been anything like that. We're talking about babies being sliced in half. You're talking about young children having their heads chopped off. You can't forget that.
Can't forget that, Macron. Netanyahu is set to address the UN tomorrow. Apparently, his plane did not even fly over Macron's France on his way to New York, fearing the French government might take it out of the sky and arrest the prime minister for an ICC warrant against him. And the International Criminal Court is a ridiculous joke. Netanyahu previewed his upcoming UN message before he left.
At the UN General Assembly, I will speak our truth, the citizens of Israel, the truth of the IDF soldiers of our country. I will denounce those leaders who, instead of denouncing the murderers, the rapists, the child burners, want to give them a state in the heart of the land of Israel. It will not happen.
Mike Huckabee is the U.S. ambassador to Israel, and he joins us now from Jerusalem. And Mr. Ambassador, good to see you again. Your expectations of the speech tomorrow, and do you think we're going to see a number of walkouts like we saw last year?
Well, I'm sure we will, and they're going to miss a great speech. But if they sat through President Trump's speech, they miss one of the greatest speeches in the history of the United Nations. And Rob, let me compliment you. You have framed this story better than anyone I've seen on television. You actually get it right, that this is about Hamas refusing to let the hostages go. And one of the great moments that I enjoyed, I'm so glad you played it, was when the president was sitting with Macron and says to his face that what you're doing by unilaterally recognizing or pretending to recognize a Palestinian state is only rewarding Hamas and forgetting October the 7th. I felt like that Macron sat there like an 8-year-old boy who had broken a window with a baseball and had been caught at it. It was just a great move. Yeah. It's what I love about my president. Yeah. He just says it to their faces, and he did it there today.
The fact that he didn't fly over France and whether or not something would have happened regardless is such an embarrassment for the West. The International Criminal Court, why is this organization still allowed to function? Why is it legitimized in any way?
There is a reason that the United States has nothing to do with, does not participate or recognize the ICC. It is a kangaroo court designed to give people who really don't respect human rights the ability to trample the people who do. It's a total waste of somebody's money. Thank goodness it's not the U.S. money, because we don't play that ridiculous game. But it needs to be disbanded. And, you know, I'm grateful that our government and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, have put sanctions on some of the people at the ICC, saying if you're going to sanction democracies and duly elected people, we'll sanction you. Yeah. That's how we ought to handle them.
I agree with that. I got a couple quick questions. I don't have a lot of time left. I think the UN should be defunded by the United States. I don't think we should be paying for this organization anymore. I think we've seen enough, and we fund a lot of their agenda, which is so toxic to the West. What do you think?
Well, what I personally think is what you just said, but I'm an ambassador. I have to take the policy of the U.S., so they haven't told me that it's okay to say that I jackhammer the thing off and float it in the East River and let someone come get it. So I can't say that, Rob, but if I could, that's what I would say.
I like that. There's been some criticism that this new Syrian president is here, is going to meet with the president of the United States, is allowed to walk freely in New York. He's obviously a terrorist at heart. That's what he was before he began running this country. Your thoughts on that criticism?
I think it's one of those moments in which we don't know what his direction will be, but the fact that President Trump reached out to him and basically said, you're going to find a partner because you can't make it on your own. And if it's us, then we have expectations of accountability stopping terrorism, giving protection to minorities like the Christians and the Druze in Syria. If the president had not done that, then this guy could have partnered with Iran, with Turkey, with China, with someone else, and that would have been very destabilizing to the Middle East and very harmful to Israel.
That's a good point. Mr. Ambassador, good to see you. Thank you so much.
Rob, thank you. Great to be with you.
All right. The hilarity of watching the left pretend to be oppressed in the media is next with Rick and Ed.
It is not, generally speaking, unruly.
The dehumanizing rhetoric of Adolf Hitler is once again alive and well.
This version of Biden is the best Biden ever.
Moments after we taped our show last night, the Mad Red Hatter wrote, "I can't believe ABC Fake News gave Jimmy Kimmel his job back. You can't believe they gave me my job back. I can't believe we gave you your job back." Straight from FCC Biscuit's mouth. He goes, he says, "I think we're going to test ABC out on this. Let's see how we do. Last time I went after them, they gave me $16 million. This one sounds even more lucrative. A true bunch of losers. Only Donald Trump would try to prove he wasn't threatening ABC by threatening ABC."
The whole thing is kind of entertaining. It's Kimmel slamming Trump and the FCC and trying to portray himself as some sort of a free speech hero. He really thinks he's so brave for trash talking Trump every night. It's the easiest thing to do in the world, by the way, if you're in Hollywood. This after Kimmel, to his credit, pulled a big number. 6.2 million people watched him cry. Really kind of crying more for himself, really, than anything else. I don't think he felt too sorry about what he said, but he cried regardless. It is hilarious to watch Kimmel, though, and the left trying to now claim that they are oppressed in the media landscape in this country. They're trying to actually sell people this idea that left-wing positions are being oppressed by this dictator. It is the greatest gaslight I've ever seen. And two hosts, Rick and Ed, join us now. Rick Leventhal, Ed Henry, good to see you guys. Rick, they have commandeered all three major networks. They have control of it 24 hours a day. Their propaganda gets spewed out, but they're oppressed.
Yeah, and let's ignore all of the people who were silenced, conservatives who were silenced or kicked off of Twitter, including Donald Trump, or kicked off their TV shows, including, I don't know, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly. There's a long list of conservative voices who were silenced by the left. And now that Jimmy Kimmel gets a taste of his own medicine, you'd think that the sky was falling and the world was on fire, but it's not. And guess what, Jimmy? Enjoy those numbers while you got them, because it's not going to last. His ratings were down 43% this year alone because he's a one-trick pony, as you well know, Rob.
That's exactly right. Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, part of this, to me, is the idea that Jimmy Kimmel's made himself the real victim of the Charlie Kirk assassination. Like, the left wants to make him their hero now. The public's simply not going to buy that. Rick's right. The ratings are going to sink like a stone. This is a sugar high for him right now because of all the attention. And by the way, Google this very week admitted that they silenced a whole bunch of conservatives on YouTube, which they own, over what they at the time called COVID misinformation that now turns out to mostly be true information. And who silenced them? It was in the Biden-Harris administration. So spare me all these Democrats lecturing all of us about free speech and Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah. It's the Democrats who shut down all these people, by the way, who don't have an ABC megaphone. It's like some conservative podcaster with 50,000 followers. I'm not minimizing it, but people trying to make a living on YouTube, they were knocked out of business because Google said, you know what, Joe made us do it. Yeah. And they've admitted that. It's on the record now.
It's the definition of a gaslight, them claiming that they've been suppressed in some way. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable when we see how it's been for the last several years in this country. Ed, staying with you. Let's talk about Tylenol. The President, Kennedy, urging women to kind of take caution here, use sparingly. Maybe it causes autism. They say they're looking at this. Also, they're trying to break up this vaccine schedule, not pumping so much into these kids all at once. Regarding Tylenol, it's funny because you get all these headlines from the media that say this is ridiculous and unproven. Even Tylenol, the company itself, and we've all seen this now, 2017, they tweeted out that we don't recommend using our product while pregnant, which, like, where is that going, you wonder, and where's that gonna lead to? But because Trump said this and Kennedy said this, you now have this army of liberal lefty pregnant women just pounding Tylenol as a way of, kind of getting even with the White House or kind of trying to thump them a little bit. And it's really sick. I heard one story a nurse told that a young woman that was pregnant ate too much of it and is likely going to die. Yeah. I saw that story on X today from a woman who's a nurse, I believe, in New York. Your reaction to this, Ed?
Yeah. My reaction is it's so absurd. I was sort of laughing at the beginning of the setup, and then by the end, I saw your face change like mine. Like, this is serious stuff. Like, people may die, or maybe the mom will live and lose a child. This is human life that people are playing with when the president and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. are saying, hey, guys, let's just at least look at this. The same people, by the way, pardon me, who said, follow the science during COVID. That's what I think President Trump is trying to do. And that's why I keep seeing these memes, by the way, guys, saying next President Trump should say, don't drink your own urine.
I know, right? Rick, go ahead, finish it off.
They'll go on TikTok.
Ed took the words right out of my mouth. Trust the science, trust the science. That's all we heard. And then it turned out the science was wrong. And what I love about this is just the fact that they're challenging the status quo. They're challenging the science. They're saying, you know what, you guys have been wrong before. And Tylenol did warn pregnant women to consult their doctors before taking it, which is great advice. You know, the vaccine schedule you mentioned, Rob, I looked at a chart that showed like 3 50 years ago, and now they're getting like 50. And that can't be good for an infant, all those chemicals, all those shots, okay, let's take a closer look at it. Let's take a step back and let's say, you know what, maybe we are doing this wrong. Maybe we need to really be much more careful about what we're putting into our bodies, and good for the administration for calling it to our attention.
Yeah, they're taking a look at it. I mean, the MMRV, pumping that all into a kid at once, Hep B on the second day of life. I mean, when I saw that presser, I saw 4 guys up there that aren't owned by anybody. And that was just, that transparency was so nice to see. Good to see you guys. Rick and Ed, thanks so much.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Before Charlie Kirk's assassination, he wrote the foreword for a new book called Pagan Threat. The book is now an Amazon bestseller. The book looks into confronting America's godless uprising, written by Charlie's longtime pastor and friend, Pastor Lucas Miles. Charlie encouraged people to read this book, offered to write the foreword to it. You can get it on Amazon, or you can get it from Newsmax with a special offer right there on the screen. All right, up here after the break, going back to the breaking news. James Comey indicted on 2 counts, facing 5 years in prison. George Papadopoulos joins us next. Back with the breaking news. Remember this picture from the former FBI Director James Comey? He just posted that on his Instagram account, 8647, back in May of this year in the springtime. Well, Director James Comey indicted on 2 counts tonight: false statements and obstruction. Former FBI director faces up to 5 years in prison if convicted. George Papadopoulos was a target of Russiagate, knows quite a bit about all of this and why James Comey deserves what he is getting right now. George, good to see you. What's your reaction, and how bad of a guy is James Comey? Because he plays a real nice guy on TV.
No, it's great to be with you. And yeah, what a momentous moment in American history. What I really think is going on here is if you're President Obama, Hillary Clinton, the Democrat Party and their cohorts in the mainstream media, then panic is really settling in, because I really don't think this is the end. I think this is just the beginning. I think Jim Comey is going to go down in history as the most corrupt FBI director in American history. This is a man who single-handedly demoralized the FBI, affected its reputation domestically and internationally. And these indictments out of Virginia are, I think, the first step towards not only redeeming justice in America, but also the reputation of the FBI.
When you say he's such a terrible person, it's hard for people to quantify that. But talk about, I mean, you know, at the core of it is that they let this Russia investigation push through to cripple this administration, the first Trump administration, which was a huge mandate from the American people to move away from kind of the powers that have been running this country for a very long time. They knew this was fake. They knew it was nonsense, but they also knew that it was going to be beneficial to let this crush people like yourself and to cripple this administration so it couldn't get anything done, because they didn't want that politics in this country, even though the American people mandated it.
Well, Rob, not only were they never actually investigating dirt on President Trump, his campaign, and of course his administration, they were actually planting dirt. And after those failed attempts to actually plant fake evidence and withhold exculpatory evidence, They continue this into Trump's administration. After President Trump fired Comey, what happened? Then you had Rosenstein appoint Mueller, and Mueller then attempted his shenanigans to cover up what Comey did and to continue this coup against President Trump. Now, of course, President Trump and his team were very wise not to fall into any of their traps. But what Comey and these people did is they put our country through hell and back, and they really affected the reputation of our intelligence agencies, the rule of law, our democratic process. It really caused a lot of damage, and we're correcting it.
Yeah. I want to just share this real quick. I don't have time to make this up for you to see, but a great tweet here. That this is tweeting off the Wall Street Journal's reporting that, that this was an unprecedented effort to prosecute political enemies by the president. Our friend Mike Benz put up pictures of the 19 alternate electors in Georgia that were charged for effectively just because they put these electors in place in case an appeal was won in that state. They went after Trump and all of these 19. They prosecuted all of them. And Benz's tweet says, here's 19 precedents right here, mother effa. And I just thought that was perfectly put, because this is, again, if this is retribution, and it feels like it might be, this is justified. Look at what they did to the president of the United States and anybody around him. Look at how hard they tried to destroy this man so he couldn't run the country, even though he just won every swing state.
Yeah, what the Democrats really did was depart from 250 years of American jurisprudence, and they basically tore up the Constitution in the process to go after their political enemies. They started this. They went after us illegally. Yeah. The president fought back. His team fought back. The American people fought back. They saw through the crimes. They saw through the lies. And now, with patriots in charge, we're going after these people with the facts, and we're going to follow them where they might lead.
I bet they got real nervous last November 5 when those results came in. They knew what was coming. George Papadopoulos, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
We'll be right back. Finally tonight, Bethpage Black, New York's governor, getting a proper greeting from golf fans at the Ryder Cup on Long Island. Take a listen.
Your friend and mine in attendance, Governor Kathy Hochul. Governor, thank you so much for being here. And thank you to your team, too, for getting us ready for the Ryder Cup in New York.
Trump goes tomorrow. The crowd will love him. See you later. Everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmitt tonight on Newsmax.